Okay, welcome to the Minds Panel Show. Your host Satori D, and we have it's been a long time coming. We have the flat Earth debate, and I rather have these I kind of named it the panel show and the more panel discussions. Actually, I have an echo. Shit.
It's okay.
Okay. Anyways, got rid of the echo, but so we have cognition from Minds or Big Mang,
Meg, yeah.
Mig Mang, David Weiss, and we have Boomeister. And so I think first we'll start off with basically outlining the flat Earth theory. Actually, it's kind of funny. The first time, I guess, when I first got on Minds was a year and a couple months ago. I really got introduced to the whole flat Earth theory. I mean, I knew it like as far as the typical mythology in science, like the whole kind of myth of like Columbus, sailed the, what they teach you this kind of stupid myth in school. Columbus, everybody thought the Earth was flat, and he sailed it, and then they knew it was a globe, blah blah blah, whatever. And I never really necessarily thought about it in that sense. I took in science, physics in high school and in college. But anyways, so when the flat Earth kind of stuff came up on Minds, I kind of did it with a little interest, but not too much interest. So I would like to first Migman to first kind of maybe introduce the topic of flat Earth theory, and even maybe how you got into it. I think would be interesting. I'm always kind of interested in kind of those like backstories a little bit.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for hosting this, and yeah, to explain the flat Earth. Maybe I'll just start with how I got into this. I started researching conspiracies from the beginning, from 9/11. Alex Jones, like most of us, David Icke, and from there, I went into Freemasons, the Freemason link with the NASA, and yeah, and then I just saw some flat Earth videos. I think the first one was the 200 proofs with Eric Dubay, and it got me really questioning the globe and how much have we been lied to, and then I just tried to test the curve for myself. They say the curve is 8 inches per mile squared, and with a huge flat distance, you should see things going over the curve. So that's the first thing that I tested, and yeah, just never stopped researching and seeing what other stuff could debunk flat Earth or prove the globe itself.
Okay. Well, Boomeister actually, also too, why I kind of, I guess, followed your channel in the beginning. You were always kind of having these discussions, and you also were phrased it like late night debates, and you were always in these discussions with flat Earth a lot. And so I kind of maybe outline your experience with flat Earth, and also to your perspective.
My rounder's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, my thing isn't so much that I'm like, flat earthers are absolutely wrong and that's ridiculous and blah, blah, blah. It's not even based off of anything NASA said or governments have said or anything like that. It's just even ancient cultures, even way before Columbus, depicted the Earth as being round. People have been able to look up in the sky for, as long as they've been able to look up. I personally am an amateur astronomer. I have a giant 8-inch telescope. And to date, there's nothing in the known universe that we can see that's, a celestial body type of thing. That's a disk. So I just kind of look at it statistically, like, why would we be a disk and yet nothing else is? and there's really no, like, to me, without the explanation of why would we be different, it's kind of hard for me to buy into it. Not that, like, if somebody got out into space as a flat earther, took some pictures, definitely saw it was flat, I would still say they were lying. It's kind of just like the aliens thing. Like, our universe is so big that statistically speaking, we can't be the only sentient species out there. So even more than just, you know, I look at the ground, it looks flat, I do these tests. Because a lot of those, like, even when I looked into them, where I'd see flat earth videos where they're, you know, looking at it over the ocean, being like, oh, this island is this far away, I shouldn't be able to see it, or this ship is this far away. I'd look at it, and the math they were doing didn't add up, because the math they were doing was based off of them standing at sea level, but in the video, they'd be, like, up on a bluff, or, like, some guy was even, like, in a helicopter. And I'm like, when you go up, that completely changes what's happening. So for me, it's just the evidence I see from flat earthers tends to just be kind of flawed. It's not that I think the idea itself is bad or people shouldn't look into it, because I totally agree. I love Alex Jones, and I love going down all the conspiracy rabbit holes, and that's all great. And I have, you know, no issue with the fact that the government is lying to us about many, 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 many things. But this in particular, I don't really feel it's something that was proven by the government. The idea, you know, and all that kind of stuff was around way, way before NASA and everything like that. So for me, it's just, if you were to prove that anything else in the universe was a flat disk, I would be more inclined to think that we might be a flat disk. So I guess that's where I come from. I'm fine even not talking about NASA, even though I believe that over 200 astronauts that have been in space, but the whole round Earth thing was around way before that. So I don't even personally feel like I need to use that as part of my argument.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same as you, as for me personally. You know, Aristotle believed the Earth was a sphere. You know, I when I was in high school and even elementary school, I used to like to go to the observatories. I had a telescope, and I guess that's probably one thing. You know, skepticism and conspiracy theories and questioning everything. I'm kind of in like the Robert Anton Wilson school of I don't believe in anything, but I have my suspicions, and
yeah.
to kind of like always keep on thinking and questioning. I think when you have a belief system, he uses it in BS. That's when you think of something for certain or with 100% certitude. That's the death of intelligence, and so that's where I come from. But I also too, kind of what you were saying about the planets and like why would Earth be different than the Moon, Mars, and things that we could observe that they are spheres. Globes. So I guess maybe we could start with that, with the planets. And I never really fully understood to the whole cosmology of the flat Earth. So maybe you guys could kind of go into that a little bit more.
So let me introduce myself. I'm David from deepinsidetherabbithole.com, where I have tons of information. It's kind of an unfair fight, the truth versus lies. Because lies are easy. You can just believe them. You don't have to do any further checking. The truth takes time, critical thought, and effort. And you really have to see through a lot of garbage to get to them. You guys made some interesting statements on what your beliefs are, what you've seen, what you haven't seen. And I actually have a lot of hope that with some more research, you too will start to see the light. You know, I started researching 9/11 literally the day it happened, but I didn't speak publicly about it until about 4 years later. And as time grew, I came upon more and more things. And I've told this story many times. People started posting on my social media, flat Earth, flat Earth, flat Earth. I delete. I even banned people from posting because it's not worth looking into. It's ridiculous. But then I looked. Another big researcher made me look, and I've been trying to debunk it ever since. I've really given up trying to debunk it because it's not debunkable. Boommeister, you said that you know, if somebody showed you a disc in space, you know, you might think about it, but there are no discs in space, and we don't live on a disc. We live on a flat plane. And what you see through your giant 8-inch telescope, even if you had a much bigger telescope, you see a point of light in the sky. That's all you see. Anyone that claims that it's anything more than a point of light, you're being programmed by stuff, by NASA programming and globe Earth programming, which we have every day in our life, every movie, every TV show, every advertisement. It's all about the globe this, globe that. And you're imagining that you're seeing a ball in space. It's not the flat Earth versus other planets. They have you believing that planets are like Earth. No, planets are just wandering stars that are not affixed in position like all of the other stars are, and move independently through the heavens above us. They're not millions and millions of miles away, and the stars are not billions of miles away, but rather they are very, very close. And all of the evidence points to that. I will end my opening statement here, but I'd like to talk about how the stars never move and how that's impossible on a spinning, wobbling, flying through space in 4 different directions globe Earth model. We there?
Yeah.
Oh yes, continue.
All right. If you want, I'll bring up. I brought up. The fact that you just have to break the programming that we have, because we make assumptions based on false information. Now, you guys mentioned that you do realize the globalists lied to us. They lied. I don't know what your views are on 9/11, Sandy Hook, and Boston. All of those were huge, massive lies. And once a liar, always a liar. These are the same people that give us all of the other information. So why would we believe them? But I'm not saying because they lie, you don't have to look at what they're saying, but there is absolutely no evidence. Just a real quick thing, and then I'll let one of you guys go, is what the globe Earth model says. The Earth is spinning around 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. It's chasing the sun. It's going around the sun at about 66,000 miles an hour. Forget all the Masonic numbering in this. That's an incredible speed. But while it's going around the sun in perfect balance, never fluctuating, from year to year, it's chasing the sun at like 660,000 miles an hour, which is another.
It actually does fluctuate, just to interject.
All right. So that makes it my argument even better. So it's chasing the sun at 660,000 miles an hour, give or take, whatever. And the galaxy is flying, close to 1 million miles an hour in another direction, 4 different directions at once. However, every year on any specific day, every star lines up exactly where it was the year before, never fluctuated.
Actually, that's not true either. It does fluctuate.
It doesn't. If you go to Stellarium, you'll watch it fluctuates, but when you get back to the beginning of the year, it goes back to right where it was.
I don't mean year by year, but I just mean over time.
Well, again, you were told this by the liars. We will have a new North Star in 45,000 years. Well, I say challenge, because that's a straw man argument. You're never going to get there. No one's ever going to know. I challenge people to do this experiment, which I did. I got a pipe about 3 feet long, a thin pipe, and I lined it up on the side of my house, pointing at Polaris, and I kept it in position. So it does not move. And every night I can look through it through the course of a year. 6 months later, when I'm 186 million miles on the other side of the sun, I look through it and Polaris is still lined up in it. And every year, all of the stars never change their parallax views to each other and to us. That is impossible. And the only argument you have is that the stars are so far away that all of this movement doesn't matter. But if you add up those movements in just over a year, it's massive distances, and add that up over decades or centuries, we would see all new stars. Last point on this, if you think about it, take the sun, imagine the sun right in the middle. You're off to the right. We'll look at it like you're looking down on a clock. You're at 3 o'clock. And you're standing on the side of the earth looking at the sun. That's the daytime. 12 hours later, you're on the opposite side of the earth and you're looking up away from the sun. That is the nighttime. Okay. 6 months later, when the sun is on the when the earth is on the opposite side of the sun, forget the fact how we somehow shifted to looking the other way at that time. People say, all right, it's a sidereal day. I'll even buy that argument. But you're looking, your nighttime is in the opposite direction. If that were true, every single star in the sky would be different. And it's not. And the observations of how most of the stars stay the same, some of the stars change depending on which hemiplane you're in, can easily be demonstrated with a close ceiling over us with points of light that are fixed in position. Sorry for going on so long. I'll try to keep my statements a little shorter.
Oh, that's fine. Is it okay if I go next?
Yeah, fine for me.
Okay. My only two things with that is when you said the stars don't move and the only people telling us they move is the government. That's not the people who are telling us it move. All ancient cultures that depict constellations in the sky, and even a lot of ancient cultures that built monuments that match up with certain constellations, they're all off by the same amount compared to where the stars are today. So that's where that comes from, and it doesn't come from NASA telling us that the stars are moving.
So the one thing I just like to jump in there. Again, that's an argument that we cannot confirm because all of the ancient teachings we have, we don't know if any of that's true. Aristotle, was he ever there? Aristophanes, was he a real person? It appears not. He didn't appear in any literature until like 1980s.
I'm not even talking about people like that. I'm talking about like Egyptians and things like that.
What I'm saying is you don't know. That information is fed to you by the winners of his story.
I'm not saying it's 100% true. I'm just saying what you were saying about the government telling us that is not where it came from.
I'll retract that statement. In our lifetimes, in our parents' lifetimes, the stars have not changed, and they reset to the exact same position year after year, decade after decade, and that is observable firsthand information, and they do not move. But with all of those motions, someone could do the math. Somebody did it. I forgot the numbers. The numbers are so big you can't even fathom how far we've moved. But the relationship, to everything. I say to go out in the forest and you have not a thick forest where you can see trees everywhere.
Well, also I don't know anyone that says the stars should be moving year to year.
Yeah, but if we are flying through space at those speeds, here's a little simple trick.
I've never seen any math that shows that that's what should be happening. So I'm not sure where that's coming from with you saying that.
I'll tell you where it's coming from. Here is the explanation. Go out where there's some trees or things into the distance. A best place is woods or a park where there's lots of trees. Put yourself and notice where the trees are in relation to each other. Map it out, maybe whatever. And I defy you to move 5 feet and not see a change in the relationship of each tree to each other. It doesn't happen. Everything moves if we're moving, and we're moving at these incredible speeds consistently, and none of the stars ever change. But
if you're looking out at a mountain and you move 5 feet, the mountain's going to look exactly the same.
Yeah, but there's stars at all different distances, and that's not true, because if you look at the closer stars, which would be a tree, halfway to the mountain, you move 5 feet, the tip of that mountain to that tree changes. Okay. And you're talking about
you're also basing this off of a lot of assumptive math and positions of stars.
Well, you're
trying to say another model is wrong, but you're using that original model incorrectly to make your points.
So your point is that the stars are so far away that these massive distances that we're moving do not affect our view of the stars. Is that correct?
They do affect our view of the stars. They do not affect it on a day-to-day or even a handful of year basis. I don't know anyone who said that they do.
Oh, okay. So how do
all I know is there's ancient civilizations that have built monuments that are in the shapes of constellations that we have today that would have lined up back in that year. So I'm not saying that's 100% true, and I'm explaining everything. Well, I'm just saying you're using the math incorrectly and then making a point that doesn't necessarily make sense.
Well, the point is that the stars are still in the same places. You have the Polaris. The Polaris is the best evidence.
All of the constellations are still the same constellations as they have in old books. They're all still the same way. They should be completely different. Even if we were moving at much lesser speeds, it's just inconceivable that people cannot see that.
I think it's interesting that you have decided that. I mean, they have moved. They are slightly different than like ancient depictions of them. They aren't exactly the same, and they aren't in exactly the same place. So my point is just that they're moving.
What ancient civilizations have this data?
I know in South America there's a couple big monuments that line up. The pyramids have a couple things that line up.
Exactly. I know the pyramids are still lined up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the pyramids themselves are. Those were also built a lot earlier than some of the other things. I'm just saying they are moving compared to every ancient civilization. Like multiple civilizations have constellations, and they are in slightly different places than they were. That's my only point, is that it isn't exactly the same. And you're trying to say that it's exactly the same, and I'm like, no, it's different.
The constellations are all the same distance away from Polaris. Can you explain how that doesn't change?
I can only explain that based off of the current theory of how the universe moves. So no, I wouldn't say that I have 100% faith on why they're the same. And if you don't believe on the current theory of how the universe moves, then you're just going to say I'm lying and brainwashed.
Well, no, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying that you're not seeing what is going on. Let's just shift.
Well, this honestly is kind of the argument I got into with flat earthers was what's proof? And we kind of just hit a point where it's like nothing I said was taken as proof, and everything they said, I'm like, well, compared to what I know, you're kind of just assuming a bunch of things and trying to tell me I'm
so let's find some more concrete stuff. And by the way, not all the flat Earth proofs are good proofs. I saw Eric Dubay's 200 flat Earth proofs is one of the first things that I saw that did really get me thinking. But if you,
I couldn't even get through that. Sorry.
Well, I know. Well, the thing is, I did get through it, and I did eliminate a whole bunch that were not conclusive. They don't prove ball Earth or flat Earth. So I'm willing to admit that a lot of people make a lot of mistakes on what is proof. But let's look at the moon for example, or the sun. The sun is harder to see because of the glare and everything. But if you look at the moon with your naked eye on a full moon on a clear night, you can see craters on that moon very clearly. And NASA, and NASA tells us how big those craters are. And if you do a little rendering in Google Earth, you can take one of those craters, put the same size mark on Google Earth. When you get up to 400,000 feet? It's 4 or 40. I forget it. It's literally not even a fifth of the distance to the moon. You can no longer see it, but somehow we're able to see it with our naked eyes. Which doesn't make any sense. Also, if you look at the distance of the sun, supposedly, and its size, it's 8 light minutes away, we're told. So if you
4.
4 light minutes, that makes it even better. So if it's 4 light minutes away,
I think it's 4.
All right. So if it's 4 light minutes away in the size, if you do the math, and if you make it a light hour away, 4 goes into an hour 25 times or whatever, 26 times or whatever. So 26 times farther, and you would not be able to see the sun. It would be invisible, but we're told that's a light hour. And we're told that we can see stars that are the same size of the sun, smaller than the sun, bigger than the sun, that are millions of light years away. Why are you saying it would be invisible?
Away.
Because
where's that coming from?
Due to perspective, because if you look at it compared to the moon, which is supposedly 400 times smaller.
Well, light travels, so you're not actually seeing the sun.
Hang on.
4 minutes ago.
Hang on. Light does not travel, and we're not going to agree on this.
Where are you basing that off of?
Because if you look at if you go into a long field. And you get a 4 million candlelight spotlight and shine it at somebody across a couple hundred yards in pitch black, they will see a point of light and they can stare at it. And you walk towards them and it gets brighter and brighter to the point where they can no longer look at it. But you go 100 yards, 200 yards, let alone 300 yards away, that becomes a tiny dot of light. And we're talking millions of light years. We're told without any
the sun
proof.
Is a ball of giant burning hydrogen that's like hundreds of times the size of the Earth. So it's going to be a little brighter than a flashlight in a field.
So what proof do you have that a star is a burning ball of hydrogen? What proof do you have?
Well, what proof do you have that it isn't?
Because it doesn't make any sense. Think about it.
How does that not make sense?
So if you got
well, there's another thing. You can't just say something doesn't make sense because common sense is not common between anybody.
I will point out a simple experiment, which is very, very not a good experiment. But if you had a balloon filled with hydrogen and lit it on fire, is it going to burn for 1 billion years or is it going to explode? Okay, if
that is not even related to how the
sun is so big that we're told that a photon takes 1 billion years to come out of the center of the sun. This is all made up malarkey. It makes no sense. We're told that the
moon. You realize
moon,
you can get a telescope and look at the sun and see what it's doing. Okay.
I have. We're told that the moon is falling to the earth, but at such a perfect rate that it never gets any closer, and it maintains, this.
It actually isn't falling towards the earth.
Well, so what's holding it?
They say falling because technically, in comparison to where gravity is, so whatever something's going towards, it's kind of one of those terms I've noticed. They say falling because it's moving towards it, but it's essentially just circling. Like the moon's actually getting further away. Like over time, the moon will eventually fly away based off of it's already moved a couple inches.
What makes
just
you
since
think
they started measuring it?
What makes you think the sun is burning hydrogen?
A couple things based off of how bright it is in comparison to how bright things are we have on Earth. You can measure the color and wavelengths of different light sources. And that's how it was determined that the sun was hydrogen, was based off of the wavelengths of the light source.
All right. That to me. Again,
also, what does this have to do with flat Earth?
Well, no, because what we're proving is that the heliocentric model makes no sense. And then we can get into the flat Earth model where you can make measurements, you can make models where it works. Here, let's go back. We were talking about the moon falling around the Earth. You say it's not falling. So what is holding the moon in an orbit around the Earth?
Based on current theories, gravity is created by mass.
Okay, so the mass of the Earth is holding the mass of the moon in a stationary, in a stable orbit, we'll call it.
Relatively stable, yeah.
Relatively stable, okay. So what is holding the Earth in orbit around the sun?
Same thing.
The sun's gravity is holding the Earth in orbit. So we have the moon going around the Earth and the Earth's gravity holding the moon, but the sun's gravity is holding the Earth. How come when the moon is moving away from the sun and going around the Earth and then coming back towards the sun, it doesn't get ripped away from the Earth or speed up or slow down?
Well, nothing goes that quickly.
Well, but so the moon is coming around the Earth towards the sun. So you have this massive gravity of the sun holding on to the Earth.
It's not like the sun's sucking in the planet.
Well, it's holding us, but we happen to be traveling at the perfect speed where as it's pulling us with the curvature.
Well, we're only the perfect speed because after millions of years of planets banging into each other, we stopped doing that.
It's
don't not like we're magically going the right place.
So I'm keeping my answers or questions short, so try not to interrupt. So the sun is pulling the Earth around it. So it's as it is going towards the sun, its curvature around the sun is not letting it crash into it. How come when the moon is coming around the Earth, heading towards the sun doesn't rip the moon away because it has the ability to hold on to the Earth? How come it can't hold on to the moon?
Well, it's not holding on. The way the planets were created was lots of spinning gas and matter smashing into each other. And the reason it's circling is because it was already moving because it had gotten hit with many things. This is the current theory. My point is this is what we can see by looking up. Yeah, I'm not trying to argue the exact of why it's happening. That's, really not even my point. It's just, this is what's happening. It's not getting ripped away.
So when we look up,
your point is,
my point, well, that's an issue. My point is when we look up, we see the sun and we see the moon relatively taking the same path at the same size at almost very close to the same speeds across the flat plane that we live on. But for some reason, people are believing that the moon is going around us. We're a ball, and we're going around the sun, which is a ball, traveling in 4 different directions at incredible speeds that have never been measured or demonstrated.
Well, the moon isn't going in the same pattern. I live up in Seattle, and the moon vastly goes across the sky in different places depending on time of year.
I said close.
Different
I
times
said
of day. No, it's like not
pattern.
even close. Like,
well, no, similar paths. It rises in the east and sets in the west.
Okay, but that's not really.
There's video of this. There's video of this. You can have time lapses where you see the moon come up at night, and then you see the sun come up in the same path.
Yeah, no. I'm not arguing that it generally comes from that side. I'm just saying where I live, the sun comes up different places, different times of day, different times of night. So my point is it's not the same path, and it's not on the exact same timeline that you seem to be saying.
Yeah, during the year, the path of the sun changes, and that's how we get the seasons. But the moon and the sun have a similar path. That's the point.
Oh, okay, yeah, similar. That's fine. Sorry, I thought you were saying it's exactly the same, because some of the flat Earth models I've seen, the sun and the moon are just going in these perfect circles above the flat Earth, and I'm like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, I specifically said that similar patterns, similar paths.
Yeah, and I think the moon is a good example, because you have the crater that they say is 52 miles in diameter. And that's a crater that you can see with your naked eye. You can see that crater on the moon. So how can that be 52 miles visible with the naked eye and be this astronomical distance from yourself, from the planet?
With nothing in between me and a lit object, that's a quarter of the size of the Earth, and then the crater size on it. I don't know how deep that crater is, so depending on how the sun's hitting, you would see more or less of the shadows.
Yeah, but the size. Sorry to interrupt. The size of the crater, it can be proven that it would be too small to discern without a massive telescope at a quarter of that distance.
Honestly, I haven't done that, so I don't really have an answer for you.
So that's great. That's
I'm not arguing. I'm just like, I haven't done that.
So that is maybe just make a note of an experiment that you can do yourself. Look at the crater yourself. Check it out. Then go on Google Earth or AutoCAD or whatever you want and create the same thing, and you'll see at a quarter of the distance it's invisible. Just check it out before you haven't done it, so that's fine. That's something that you might want to do.
I'll definitely try it.
Tycho crater.
Can we want to move on to something else?
Yeah, I think we're just going to agree to disagree on most of this spatial relations.
I think too, maybe something that I kind of question and I never necessarily seen something that maybe has a better in the flat Earth model is better than the globe model or the current model of our cosmology is what makes, I guess, what is your best explanation for the different daylight and from there's 24 hours of the sun in the South Pole and the seasons and stuff like that. So like what's the best model that you've seen?
That's a great topic, and we'll talk about that. We've seen a credible video of the 24-hour sun in the north, but there is no credible video or even slightly believable video of the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. If you look at the webcams that are down there that supposedly show the sun going around for 24 hours, you'll see that it's a loop. It's a 12-hour loop or so where they switch back, and you could watch the shadows jump across. You never see it go all the way around. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have 24 hours of at least twilight in Antarctica, but in this day and time, anything that can be filmed in high def will be filmed in high def, and there is no film of the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. And in fact, there's people that have worked down there that say that the sun does circle and go away. I made a video on my YouTube channel, DITRH, showing how the Antarctic sun doesn't go around in a circle, but curves away.
Oh, actually, I just have a question. What's this 24-hour sun thing? Because everything I've looked up on Antarctica is it does set for, or relatively sets for a certain period of time in the winter. I never actually heard that it stayed out all year.
It doesn't. Now, there are times where it is light in Antarctica, and that's a whole nother topic of how light can be emitting light in Antarctica. That's not that'll take up the rest of the show, but it has to do with the lighting of the dome. Or the ceiling, we'll call it, or the sky, whatever you want to call it, and how light is affected out on the edges there. But there is no video of the sun going around in Antarctica, and there are fake videos by major, I think it's National Geo, or I'm not sure exactly who made it, but they're proven fakes. On my channel, you could find a video there that I took apart. So again, if you talk about seasons, equal latitudes away from the equator, north and south, should have similar life, similar seasons, and they do not. In the coldest temperatures are in the outer southern hemisphere, and the warmest temperatures are in the northern hemisphere, which doesn't make any sense. At 75 degrees north and 75 degrees south, you should have very similar weather, similar everything, and you don't. It's completely opposite. Again, Eric Dubay has a seasons prove flat earth video, and I recommend people see it. You can also find all of the greatest flat earth videos on deepinsidetherabbithole.com. I have 5 or 6 flat earth pages, but you have to take the time.
Sorry to interject. Sorry, you just keep going though. You're saying, the weather should be the same on both. What's that based off of? Is that just saying that makes sense to you?
No, off of the model of what causes the seasons. The southern latitude.
Nobody says that though. Like you're saying that makes sense to you based off of something, but no one else made that conclusion off of it.
No, you're incorrect. What they're saying is that the angle of the sun in the northern hemisphere versus the angle of the sun in the southern hemisphere, based on the tilted Earth spinning around the heliocentric model, that you would have similar weather, similar life, but it's not even close to similar.
The weather is not 100% because of the sun. So they have similar daylight. They have similar things like that, but the weather has a lot more to do than just how close we're tilted to the sun or not.
The temperatures of the Earth should be relative to the tilt of the sun, and we're told that this slight little tilt. When the northern hemisphere is leaning towards the sun, during our winter, we're actually closer to the sun. Are you aware of that in the heliocentric model? Versus Australia, their winter, they're farther from the sun. Are you aware of that?
I'm still finding most of your conclusions are based off of what seems to make sense to you, not what's actually trying to be said by the data.
This is not a conclusion. This is what the heliocentric model says. It says hang on, let me make the statement. And
you're trying to tell me what the statement is saying, and I'm like, that's not what it's saying.
All right. So is when the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun versus the southern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun on the opposite side 6 months later, are they both the same distance from the sun, or are they one of them farther from the sun?
It'll be relative. The Earth isn't a perfect sphere, but either way, that more has to do with length of day and general temperature, not exact weather.
I'm not talking length of day or weather. I'm asking.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's what it relates to. You're making it about the weather, and I'm like, that's not what it totally relates to.
I'm asking you a simple question. In the heliocentric model,
you're not responding to anything I'm saying, though.
Well, you're not listening to what I'm saying, so I'll respond to anything you want. But you're making
though. You're making almost a claim. Totally avoided everything I pointed out.
You're making a claim that I'm saying what I'm not that I'm saying things that I'm not saying. Here's the question: in the you're disagreeing with what I'm saying which is I'm quoting the heliocentric model. In the
But you're
heliocentric,
making conclusions based off of that were not the point of that model.
what conclusion am I making? You don't even know what I'm making. We'll wipe out everything I said. I'm asking you a separate question. In the heliocentric model, on June 21st, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun at a specific distance from the sun. 6 months later, on December 21st, the southern hemisphere is having its summer, and it is tilted towards the sun at a specific distance. Which one of those distances is farther, or are they both the same? It's a question. There's nothing else tied to it.
Okay, whoever is tilted further away at the time will be a little further from the sun.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Let me clarify the question. The hemisphere.
I'm sorry. You're very. I don't mean this criticism, but you're extremely long-winded, and I'm not really sure what a lot of your points are.
All right, I will become short-winded. On December 21st, one of the hemispheres is tilted towards the sun. That's the southern hemisphere. How far is that from the sun compared to 6 months later when the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun on June 21st? Is there a difference in those distances?
I'm sorry. What are... You're trying to lead me to something. I'd rather you just say the point.
But my point is that you're misquoting me. So let me ask Statutory D. Do you understand the question? Satori D.
Satori D. That's Statutory D.
Sorry,
You're already gonna, like,
Satori D.
a
whole other topic.
But anyways, no.
Do you understand the question?
Yes. And this is kind of goes into I in the sense that I'm ill prepared for this discussion, and so I can't verify what you're saying, and so I mean I would have to to look up to make sure that you're set up.
No problem. So that's not even
correct.
So even if they were equal distances, one of them is having summer at the same time as the other one is having winter due to the tilt of the Earth. That is what the heliocentric model says. Do you guys agree with that?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay, so this little tilt of the sun is what makes the season. On June 21st, our summer, if you look up at the sun at 12 noon, it's going to be on your face and it's going to be very hot. But on December 21st, if you look up at the sun, you can barely feel the heat at 12 noon because it's lower in the sky. I say because it's farther away on the flat Earth model. But
well, it depends. I live in Seattle. You never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So if that was the case, that these little angles made a huge difference in the amount of heat, then you should have freezing at sunrise and sunset, boiling at 12 noon, and then freezing again, at the end of the day, because the angle changes from 0 degrees up to 90 degrees and back down to 0 degrees every day of the year. But we're told.
I'm sorry. Can I step in? You said it changes the heat. That's not what it's doing. The heat you're feeling has a lot more to do with the weather that's happening where you currently live.
I'm talking about a
that's coming from the sun.
A perfectly clear sunny day. Where is, why isn't it freezing in the summer at sunrise and sunset? But as soon as that sun pops over the horizon, you can feel more heat coming from it than you can at 12 noon on December 21st.
Well, it depends on where you live. I'm in Seattle, so we get a lot of weather from up north where there's tons of ice. So we literally have ice cold air blowing onto us.
I got it. So you're in Seattle. I've made my point. Everyone that's listening got it. Now I'd like to respond to any questions that you have because I've been talking a lot.
I kind of want to go back to my original thing about what model do you think describes the different the time zones and the sun, because what I've seen, and I'm not very well versed in flat Earth theory, or I think even within that whole community, there's different theories that are people bring up that you guys not necessarily agree on. But I was gonna say of how on the disk and I've seen different things where they say the sun just goes in a circle around it, and I don't fully understand how that theory best explains that.
I'll go, and then Mig, if you want to say something. Think of the sun as a heat lamp, and that heat lamp, when it's closer to you, is hotter, and when it's farther from you, it's colder. Think of that on just a much smaller scale. There's a video called "How the Sun Works" by Stinky Cash. How the sun works. It's on my website. It's on his YouTube channel, and that'll show you exactly how the model works. And if you look at it, that's what we observe. That makes sense if the sun is a source of heat, which it is. It's also not the only light in the sky.
For the purposes, though, of this show, can you explain it to the listeners?
So
this isn't an ad for your website. Sorry.
My website it's just a way to get through the 7 or 8 million videos out there. It's a way, if you want to do some flat Earth research. I've spent a long time compiling this stuff. So the way the flat Earth model works, for those of you that don't know, you have we think of it like a lake, where the outer shore of the lake is Antarctica. And in that lake are islands. And in the halfway to the center point, you have the equator, which circles around the center point. So the sun on the equinox, which we just passed, is circling above the equator. And as we go towards December 21st, those circles get wider and actually faster as the sun moves towards the outer Tropic of orbit, the outer orbit, the Tropic of Capricorn. After December 21st, it starts moving back in to the equinox, past, comes into the inner northern hemiplane, making smaller, tighter circles, giving us the warmth because it's closer to us, and giving the southern lands colder weather. So it comes in and out, in and out.
In your flat Earth model, where did the flat Earth come from?
In your geocentric model, where did everything come from? It came from nothing.
You said you would answer my question, and you're evading my question.
You know what? All right. I don't know. God made it. I don't know. In the geocentric model, there was nothing, and it exploded into everything. That's an extraordinary claim.
There's actually a lot of other theories besides that. That's we don't know, so it started here.
Here's my theory.
Accepted.
Yeah, here's my theory. I don't know.
Okay, that's a good answer. I also don't know. When things kind of don't make sense based off of what's currently known, that's when I'm like, well, I'm not going to say this is right because...
Yeah, but you don't think it's strange that they teach this like it's a fact, the Big Bang Theory? And they're already
personally, I think the way school systems work is a bunch of crap, and people should do research on their own. And I think the way they teach science is completely incorrect, because when you actually listen to scientists and follow some of their podcasts, they are very clear that this is just their current understanding of the universe right now.
Really?
They don't talk in terms of facts. Like, the fact that science is taught as like permanent facts, I think is very incorrect.
Well, for example, the theory with the black holes, some scientists say that the black holes have mass, and other scientists say that black holes have zero mass.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, because they don't know.
No, but they don't say they don't know. They say, this is what they say to the media. They say that black holes exist, and this is
part of it. I've read those articles.
Been finding black holes.
Well, no, let me explain.
This is what they tell us.
I read those articles. The media, because I go back and then I look at the actual interviews that weren't like spelled out in the actual article. Every article done is always, scientists say this now, scientists do this. But when you actually go and listen to the scientist, that's not the way he phrased it. Like, they do that to get clicks. They do that to get people to read it. Well, that's not if you go talk to a scientist, they're not going to say it like that. They're going to go, this is what I think it is right now.
There's whole branches of scientists funded by governments that are just studying black holes. So it's not like they don't believe it doesn't exist, They are funded for this research.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying when you talk to scientists, they don't talk in as certain facts as the way that school is taught or the way that media portrays what they say. Hey, they're well aware that they only have a very current right now understanding of the universe, and that in 10 years it might be totally different.
Yeah, like for me to you know, there's a different, and I totally agree with like what Boomeister is saying about school and how they phrase it, and even what was brought up earlier, you know, the winners write history, you know. But for me, as I grew older and started to question and think more, for me, what I understand when you read some of the people that I like to read, certain scientists or certain thinkers, and science can only say that this is a model or theory or interpretation of the data that we have presently. But the data is always coming in differently and newer as we move along, and it should always progress and rival the old model. And so we can never know if the model really fits the facts, but it might come into light in the next millennium or whatever, that there's new facts, new data that comes in. And it's about keep on progressing according to the data that we get in, and that's using the latest of mathematics that we have, the latest of observation of satellites, and I think that yes, there is a tunneling and a filtering between what you guys were saying about certain institutions and certain governments, but not all of science is controlled by government. Not all, most of the progression of science has become with individuals keep on pushing, and they get backlash because they discover new data and they come up with new models, and it's always kind of like, oh, you know, they question them, and you know, and then later the majority of people are slow to adopt the cutting edge of our knowledge, and this is kind of where I come from. And so I mean, I tend to focus on certain things. Like I don't believe all of the scientists are controlled by the government, and I know there's, you know, like NASA, but I don't, just because they may have some things fishy, I still think a lot of, you know, the satellite images, I don't believe all of those are fake, or that all the astronauts are lying. I mean, you try to keep a secret amongst your friends, and you say, oh, don't tell anybody about this, and you just, like with 3, you know, it's impossible to keep that under lid.
You know, that's a long, it's an old argument. They've been able to keep plenty of things secret. You know, astronauts are all military based. You can keep people quiet about lots of things, but that's, you know, we'll never agree on that. Satori D, you mentioned at the beginning, or maybe it was you, Boomeister, about curvature tests of the beach. That they were done from higher areas. Yeah, there's a lot of curvature tests that were done incorrectly. They didn't take into account the viewer's height, but there's also a lot that have been done correctly. Recently, a YouTuber named Dr. Zach, I believe, did a laser test on a boat, which without, you know, a high-powered laser, and showed undoubtedly that they can see far past any supposed curvature. And these are being done all the time. There's plenty of experiments going on. And there's stuff that we can't even explain, but does not work in the heliocentric model.
And that's fine. I'll look that one up. Because, yeah, pretty much everyone I looked up that was like, look, we did this test. I'm like, your variables are totally off. I can't even take you seriously now. Yeah. And I totally agree with Sturdy. Like, everything I know of in terms of science, because I do a lot of personal research. Like, it's not like I just sit through classes and do stuff like that. Like, I've been into astronomy since I was little. I've always kind of done my own thing with it. It's yeah, when I see people, like, I feel like flat earthers are only trying to disprove the current heliocentric model. So there's so many holes because there isn't, like, everything about knowing the earth is round or whatever, the universe is, you know, what we know today based off of the information we have. And I just feel like the flat earth is trying to just prove so much of that is wrong because of those holes. And it's like, well, yeah, there's holes. We don't know everything. We don't have all the answers, but that doesn't mean the earth is flat. Like, yeah, it's fine to have those questions, and it's fine to, like, move forward with that, to say, like, hey, there's these things that don't make sense. It's more than 100% certainty that, oh, well, the earth is flat because you can't explain these things. That's really where my issue comes from.
So, there's lots of things, that you can look at, and things fall into three categories: flat Earth, globe Earth, or inconclusive. It works on both. And so far, and a lot of those things are inconclusive. They work on both. They don't work on either or whatever. I found tons that only work on the flat Earth. I found way more that work on both. And I've found zero that work on the ball Earth.
This is another. Oh, sorry.
And when you talk about flat earthers, there's a lot of people researching this, and we're not all the same. So you can't just generalize all of us like we have all the same opinions. And we all started the same way, like researching other conspiracies. And then when we come up with flat Earth, everyone thinks it's stupid. Everyone thinks it's stupid. Everyone tries to debunk it. And when you reach a certain point that you try to debunk it and you try to test the curve, you realize that there's some really big holes, because then you find out also that most of their theories are not theories. It's dogma.
Well, I mean that is true. All the different flat earthers I've run into are different. I more just meant the general idea of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot less trying to show how the flat earth exists and a lot more just trying to say how the other model is wrong. So how most of our talk right now has been about how the other model is wrong, and only about 15% of this podcast so far has been about how the flat earth works. And the rest of it was just arguing how my opinion what I thought the data was wrong.
You know what? It's because the heliocentric model is so laughable at this point. That's why sometimes I do focus on... Well, that's an opinion. Yeah, all right. Well, it's my opinion. And the flat Earth model is, a verbal form like this isn't the best place, because you need to see lots of the experiments that were done. And I just recommend people take the time to look at those experiments and make, anyone that believes me saying the flat Earth is real is insane. You have to see it for yourself. All I'm trying to do is get people that think the Earth is a spinning ball to take the time to actually look at the good evidence. Now, in every group, no matter what it is, church group, flat Earth group, ball group, whatever, there's always crazy people. All right. Eliminate the crazy people from your life. Focus on what's good is what I say. Mm-hmm. So, hey, you made a comment. I forget which one of you made it. Aliens. That's funny. The universe is so big, according to NASA, that there has to be life out there. And I used to believe that too. But what's more realistic? That aliens travel incomprehensible light years, which is, you can't even fathom what a light year is, and then get here and crash or not crash or whatever. Or they're just coming from 10,000, 15, 20, 50,000, maybe only a couple thousand miles past the shore of Antarctica, coming over the flat plain, somehow getting into our world and interacting with us. That, to me, makes a lot more sense. I have no proof that has ever happened, that there's any life outside of the puddle that we live in. But if there are physical extraterrestrials, which means extra territory, extra land, they are coming across the flat plane instead of an infinite sea in the universe that, incomprehensible distances.
Honestly, just on the face of it, both of them sound just as preposterous.
Okay.
My comment really was just the existence of aliens. I wasn't necessarily saying about them visiting Earth.
Well, you said that.
If I were...
Okay.
Oh, no, I said aliens in existence in the universe. It's so big, like, how could we be the only smart ones? Honestly, if I wasn't from Earth and someone just gave me those two options, I would probably say they sounded equally ridiculous. So,
question for you. The universe is so big. What proof do you have? NASA explains that Polaris is, I forget the exact numbers.
Well, you already said you didn't believe in the proof when I talked about wavelengths and different things like that. So
what I'm saying is
nothing I have to say you will take as evidence.
I'm asking you a question that NASA says the distance to Polaris is between X distance and Y difference. And the difference between that is like 100 or 600 trillion miles is the difference between where they think it is. That's the leeway or whatever. I'm losing the words, but that's their variable. So don't you think something's wrong with their model? They can't even get that, They've got distances in there that make no sense. They don't even know where any of these stars are. And unless you have 2 points of view of something, you have no idea how big it is or how far it is. So how do we know how big the universe is? You're believing NASA.
No, we don't. And
But
the
you said-
distance
you
of
said-
stars, a lot of that was predetermined way before NASA, so that's
Yeah,
kind of
so
unrelated to them.
Who predetermined it? How does anyone know how
A
far?
lot of mathematicians back in the 1800s and then in Arabia way back in the day.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it
so
wasn't NASA.
my question to you is: these ancient astronomers, how did they get the distance? How did they get the distance to these stars? Without size or distance, you don't know size or distance.
Yeah, and they don't have it exactly. Like, it is all best guess estimates based on the information we have about how light works.
Well,
Okay.
they have supposedly been sending satellites into space and recently to Jupiter, so they have to know some distances, right? For that to be possible.
You know, the whole going to Jupiter, you know, the rover on Mars, you know, how does a rover on Mars with a small solar panel on it send information
Sorry, I have a
back
screaming kid. I'll be right back.
through the Van Allen radiation belt to us? I mean, we can barely get Wi-Fi across our houses. You know, how is that possible that a small battery on a rover with a solar panel, which would probably not even charge an iPhone, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I understand that a lot of people now they don't want to argue with NASA. You know, they don't want to mention NASA because they already know that NASA has been lying.
I'm back.
So
Sorry, what was that last part?
I can see why people don't want to use the argument with NASA evidence, because I think most of people now know that NASA has lied to us about a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Honestly, I didn't bring it up just because that was one topic where every time I brought it up with any flat earther, they were just like, it's all lies. I was like, okay, fine. We'll talk about something that you won't totally think is lies. My comment, though, I did hear someone mention satellites before I had to go off, is the first time I heard someone say the satellites were just planes or whatever, they weren't really satellites, I looked up, like, okay, how many people have satellites up there? Who is doing it? You know, what is it for? And I think the number came out, it was over 8,000 different individual governments and private corporations
8,000.
and companies. It was over 8,000 individual corporations and companies, not even amount of satellites that, you know, supposedly had satellites. And it's one thing to say like, oh, NASA's lying, or, you know, astronauts are lying or whatever.
Well, of course.
But when you
not
have
everyone-
over 8,000 companies, which means there's even more people involved, to have all of those people across the entire planet all lying exactly the same, that just seemed a little kind of over the top. I was like, no, that
so
many
let
people
me-
never all lie about the
You
same
don't
thing.
have to. You don't have to have everyone lying. You know, people are compartmentalized. You know, they know what they need to know. No, that's like
that
in
number is
military.
just like
everyone
preposterous, though,
in
to
the
have them all
military,
lying about the same thing, though.
So
everyone in the military has ranks.
So-
So the soldier doesn't know as much as the lieutenant. You know.
So there's companies that spend hundreds of millions of dollars to put satellites up there. There's patents out there for faking satellite signals through radio towers. So who's not to say that NASA is just bilking these companies for hundreds of millions of dollars, faking a satellite up, and then just using ground-based ground-based communication?
But this had nothing to do with NASA. They weren't launched by NASA or anything. Like, private corporations launch their own stuff, not through the government.
So the reason that they're taking the space agencies private is because private companies are not they don't have to comply to Freedom of Information Acts when the shit hits the fan. So here's a question for you.
This wasn't related to space. I'm just not sure why you're connecting those two.
Well, here's a
Like, this
question.
was like phone companies and random shit.
You believe that that there's satellites orbiting all around the Earth in all different directions, geosynchronous.
I believe that you couldn't get that many people to all lie about exactly the same thing.
Okay. So why is it that there's no satellite coverage in the outer southern oceans?
because all those satellites are not all phone satellites. Like this is for all companies for a bunch of different things.
I'm talking about GPS satellites. Why is it?
Oh, GPS? Okay.
Yeah.
Why is the question again then?
Why is it that the GPS only works in the inner northern hemisphere, hemiplane, and that in the outer southern oceans, once you get 100 or 200 miles offshore, it goes into approximation. Even from California to Hawaii, the plane goes into approximation mode and is flying blind.
Wait, plane? So you're talking about somebody with a handheld GPS or a plane?
No, I'm talking about airplanes being tracked all around the world that are in flight. There's none over the southern oceans because there's no GPS out there. When you get far enough away from the tallest radio mast, you lose your GPS signal.
Okay, so have you been on a plane that this has happened, or are you just looking up a tracking website?
I'm looking at all of the GPS that officially track all of the flights that fly all over the Earth. There is no GPS in the outer southern oceans.
Okay, because I would have a simpler response to they just don't show it. Like, unless you're actually out over the Southern Ocean and are not picking up GPS, you can't say there's no GPS there. It just means that website isn't showing you that.
So why do they show all of the flights across the inner northern oceans, but none in the outer southern oceans?
I don't know. I'm just saying that's a much more likely explanation than there's no GPS when you haven't been out there to see that there actually is no signal.
How come no satellite has ever been filmed in space?
Yeah, that's the thing you said, that there was more than 8,000 satellites in orbit. So
it was more than that. It was 8,000 companies and countries.
Yeah, so how come none of them have ever been filmed from the space station? How come in all of the space flights, space station, moon landings, whatever, there's never been a 180-degree, let alone 360-degree pan of a camera? That's impossible. How come it's never happened? The answer is because the fourth wall doesn't exist.
Well, you just are making that up. I can say I don't know. I can give guesses for why, but this is where you come in and you're like, no, that's because of this. And it's like, no, we really don't know. We weren't there.
Well, why wouldn't that happen? I mean, why wouldn't there be a full 360-degree pan of a camera? Wouldn't you do that at some point? How come do you believe in the International Space Station?
Do you want me to guess? Do you want me to guess? Because I do know something about the cameras they have up there.
That they're afraid to point at the sun, right?
No, a lot of them are stationary inside of boxes. Like one that they basically launched it. I kind of just saw this documentary on how they were doing it because they were putting it in space, so it wasn't inside of the space station. And they had to basically protect it from anything that was going to fly by, little rocks, stuff like that. So yeah, they couldn't pan it because of the way it was built. So I'm just saying that's an explanation. And the explanation of the Earth is flat, that's why we didn't see a pan, seems a little more ridiculous than just, well, they're honestly not using great technology sometimes.
So you mentioned the space station, so you believe in the space station. In the greatest achievement of mankind, the assembly of the space station, how come there's no video of it being built? There's none. No one ever strapped a camera onto an astronaut's head, on any of it. There's no video of it being built at all.
Well, I would speculate because it was military that they didn't let you see shit like that. That to me would be the easy answer.
How come there's none right now? There's none. I mean, you can explain away everything with stuff like that.
Well, there is video of the space station, but every flat earther has just said it's doctored fake footage. So there's really no way for me to answer you.
There's no video of the space station being assembled. Greatest accomplishment.
Oh, being assembled. Yeah. A ton of things are not on video. That's not an explanation for it being fake.
Well, we have video. We have pictures. I don't know if we have video of the Eiffel Tower being built. So wouldn't we have video of something so monumental as the ISS?
Again, my explanation would be the Eiffel Tower is something that everybody can see from their house, and the space station was a government project. Like, that seems much more likely than it's all fake.
Which was funded by the public, so the public would have an interest.
Yeah, but we all know about government things that are funded by the public. We don't get to see shit. I'm just saying I'm not surprised at all there's no footage of it.
All right. Do you have any other questions that you'd like to ask? Because I know we've been driving the conversation and subjects been jumping all around. Do either of you have any questions about the flat Earth that you would like us to answer?
I do have a question for what constitutes information. when I would talk to people, I found that any witnesses that said the earth looks flat or I had this weird experience or something would immediately be taken 100% seriously by all flat earthers. And anyone who disagreed is a lying government shill.
So when did you meet me before today?
Sorry, when I've talked online. This was not you. This wasn't even any conversation with you. This was
but
previous
ball
one.
earthers, some ball earthers say all you flat earthers. They always lots of them say that all the time.
Okay, everyone but you that I have talked to so far, I have brought that up, and that was their answer.
Well, I don't know who you're talking to, but you know.
If you have a different answer, please fill me in. I would be more than happy to hear.
Do you have any specific questions about how something works on the flat Earth? Either.
Well, yeah. How does it work? Like, I mean, he already said they don't. You have no explanation of how it came into existence.
And you have no explanation of how the Earth came into existence.
Well, no, I do. There is a current theory for it. I might be wrong.
So your
not
theory,
even the Big Bang. They've actually moved on past kind of the Big Bang. But my point is there's a general theory for how the Earth came to this way, and you guys don't even have a hypothesis for how it became flat. That's all I'm getting at. I'm not saying I'm right.
That doesn't refute reality, you know. If you cannot see the curve, if the horizon is always flat and always rises to the eye level, you know.
No, but my question is, you don't even have a hypothesis for how the Earth is flat. That's my question.
I do.
Okay, because the other guy said he didn't. So if you do, please let me know.
It was created by a creator.
So this is a religion.
It's not a religion.
But a creator created.
Well, if you look at the workings of the flat Earth, you will realize it's not a cosmic accident like we've been told. It is an intelligent design. Therefore, there is a creator, and I use the word creator because I don't have any other words to describe who built the flat Earth.
Giant space aliens. I'm okay with that. Honestly, that could be the answer for the heliocentric model too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, people believe in aliens. You don't call them religious for believing in aliens. So just by saying that stuff didn't just magically appear out of nothing, you know.
So we were built. That's the hypothesis.
Sure.
Because honestly, I can kind of get behind that.
Do you have any other questions specifically about how the flat Earth could work in what we see, feel, and sense, you know, with our bodies and minds?
I know the gravity thing was sort of covered with magnetism. So can you go more into that and how regular magnets don't seem to be affected in the same way? How all that works, basically how gravity isn't what we think it is.
Again, you know what? If you want to call what holds us down to the Earth gravity, that's fine. But
just placeholder word.
But gravity, you know, is only a theory in the heliocentric model. Without it, the heliocentric model doesn't work. But it's never been proven. You know, supposedly it was proven with the Cavendish experiment with some giant balls in a barn. It makes no sense. And how come, you know, that wasn't recreated even on a bigger scale ever since then? The electromagnetism. If you look at quantum locking. You could see how superconductors can float over a magnetic Earth, locked into position and orbit it. There's a video I have called "Quantum Locking Meets the Electric Universe," and that shows how something can float above a flat plane locked in position. So we have maglev trains which defy whatever's holding us down with electromagnetism. So it's not defying gravity in my mind. It's defying electromagnetism. And again, I don't have all of the information on it, but in a laboratory, we can make experiments that prove that you can defy what's pulling us down with magnetism of some sort. We cannot show gravity in a laboratory.
Okay, how does magnetism affect humans though? Like we don't have, other than having like iron and random trace elements in our blood.
Electromagnetism doesn't just affect I see what you mean. Affect metal. I mean, have you ever seen somebody get stuck to something electric? It's happened to myself a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It's holding me down. So there is some sort of electromagnetism, that might not even be the right word, that is affecting us. Makes more sense than gravity to me. And that's all. I don't know enough about it. So I don't.
Okay, so basically it looks like the biggest difference is heliocentric model is we all came here by accident, and flat Earth is we were built by somebody, something.
There's some people that say the heliocentric model was God created.
Yeah, that's not me. It could be. I mean, for all I know, it is. I'm just saying the general theory accepted by scientists is that it came here by accident.
The reason that a higher percentage of flat Earth researchers believe that it was created by a creator is because it has to be, because it's not a random speck of dust and being attracted to another speck of dust, and then all of a sudden bacteria climbing out of water and becoming a human being. That doesn't make sense on this highly technical, very well crafted, amazing, beautiful flat Earth we live on.
That sounds very much like an opinion, not necessarily based on evidence, but that's okay. I'm fine if the whole thing is that we were created by something. I mean, that does kind of strike me more as a religion, but that's also okay.
So not to be accused again of talking about trying to defend the globe, is there other specific things about how the flat Earth could work that we could answer for you?
What's on the other side?
I don't know. It's not like a piece of paper. It might be forever thick. What's at the end of the universe? I don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't tell people what's on the other side. We're not going to tell people that we have a hot center of the Earth, like heliocentrics say, that even though they haven't been 8 miles.
Yeah, 8 miles is less than 8 miles is the deepest hole.
Yeah, so it's not very deep.
How can they say that they know what's in the center? Well,
it's just a best guess. It's not.
Okay.
100%.
Exactly, but when you say the best guess, this is what they teach in school as facts.
Well, like I said, I don't like the way they teach things in school, so I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is what we have to fight with, and when we talk about flat Earth, people react to it with a very aggressive way because they've been taught all of this.
The other question. I don't know if you guys refer to it as the firmament or the dome. Can you explain that?
So in the flat Earth model, there is a physical barrier above us, whether or a barrier. It could be energetic. It could be physical. Evidence is showing that it is some sort of liquid or plasma that is above us.
What's that evidence?
There's evidence of the Go Fast rocket that went up appeared to hit something. There's if you look at look at things up there, it looks like there's liquid. There's a lot of videos, researchers, astronomers that talk about it. I recommend that people listen to Crow 777. He talks about it a lot. There's lots of if you look at all of the language in history, they talk about ships and sailing and space, all together. What rock solid evidence is there? I don't know, but there's a multitude of small things that point to that.
Yeah, actually, when I look at the moon with my telescope, it always looks like it's like right above a fire. Like you can see that wavy.
That also can be explained by by atmospheric moisture, distorting what you're seeing. And I'm not saying that when I look at the moon, it sure looks like it's in water or underwater to me. But that can be explained lots of ways. Again, that goes into the inconclusive basket.
Okay. How do you explain all the, I don't want to say satellites that everyone says are up there, but the things you can see when you lay down and look at the sky.
Yeah.
And you just see this bright little light just go over really fast.
Yeah.
So I can't catch it on my telescope because it's way too fast and I won't see it in time.
So I see them all the time when I'm in a place where I can see the sky clearly. And I always used to look at them and track them. Look, a satellite. But what I'm seeing is nothing more than a light in the sky. Nothing we see in the sky can be proven to be solid, spherical, flat, or anything else. All it is a light in the sky. That's all we see. We're told, I believe that the reason they tell us that there's an uncountable number of satellites is so we can't say, hey, what was that light? It wasn't accounted for. There's so many that no matter what light we see, we say that that it's a satellite. Let's go to one that everyone or most everyone has seen, which is the International Space Station. I have a program on my iPhone that tracks it, and I've seen it many times. But what I see is a bright light. But let's look at the space station. It's slightly bigger than a 747. Let's say it's twice the size of a 747, but it's not. It's smaller. And it's flying through the sky.
I think it's the size of a football field.
It's generally that size.
Yeah, so it's generally that size, but I'll even say it's bigger. If you look at a 747 flying at altitude 5 miles up, it's literally a very tiny dot. If it's clear enough to see it, it's a tiny, tiny dot. That's 5 miles up, and you could barely see it. If the 747 was flying twice as high, just 10 miles up, it would be invisible to see. But with our naked eye, we can see the space station 25 times farther than the cruising altitude of the 747. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's a light.
I've never managed to see it. It's too cloudy here, so I have no opinion on what it looks like.
So I have. It's literally a extremely bright light in the sky. And even if the satellite, if the ISS was made of mirrors, all focused in my direction, I don't think it would be as bright as we see. It is, and I've caught it on a telescope for just a couple seconds, is a light in the sky that's moving faster. To me, I don't know how far it is. I don't know how big it is, but it's brighter and faster than anything else up there other than the sun and the moon.
Yeah, and then we have videos of spacewalks with the ISS that show water bubbles. Like, how can you explain that? Water bubbles in space.
I know how you can explain that. It actually is in space, and it is in liquid, and there's bubbles. Kind of kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of seen those. I mean, personally, to me, it looked like just crappy camera footage more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of videos with this. You know, it's not just one.
Yeah, they also have a lot of shitty cameras.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of that stuff that was put up there is decades old. Like, just imagine camera stuff from that long ago, and then the wear and tear it's gone through. Like,
a GoPro is not supposed to be a shitty camera, right? It has a high definition.
Sorry.
So yeah, when you see a lot of cameras, a lot of footage showing water bubbles, you have to try to explain that, no? I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, tiny human. 1 sec.
Yeah. I personally, like I said, I haven't seen any of that footage for myself, so I can't necessarily speak towards that.
On my YouTube channel, NASA Hoax page, if you want to weed through a lot of the garbage, I got about 20 or 30 videos there. It's called NASA Hoax in one of my playlists. Check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just type in YouTube water bubbles in space. You'll get a few hits.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some of them. It would really depend. I mean, the ones I've seen were kind of from very different times and with different cameras. And I'm like, well, I don't know. It could be a bunch of different things. So, yeah, I don't know. That's basically my answer. It just looks like, from the ones I've seen personally, it looked like it was just kind of shitty camera, weird angle, light was coming in, stuff like that.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's generally all of my questions, because mine are more based off of, like, how did it get created? Why does it make sense? But you answered those, so I think all my big ones have been answered.
So, Tori D, you have any questions?
No, not really. I mean, like, and once again, it kind of goes back to just my basic outlook on things and how I view things. But for me, like, interesting things, but once again, I don't necessarily take your word for it. I would have to go and
absolutely. So
for myself.
I want to compliment you on saying I don't know or I haven't looked into it. Take the time and look into it, and it's not 5 minutes or 5 hours. It's literally a couple of weeks of digging in. And you know, I was accused of plugging my website. My website is just there to make it easier to find. Most of the people listening already know about it, deepinsidetherabbithole.com or ditrh.com. And I've sorted out, I've picked out the best videos so you don't have to go through all of the garbage. If you take the time and go through those pages, there is absolutely no way that you can watch all 5 pages of videos and come out the other end believing that we live on a spinning ball. Again, if you believe me, you're insane. You have to look at it for yourself.
Yeah, and in the end, this is a choice. You either choose to research it yourself, or you can just go on with your life, because many people think that this wouldn't make any change in their lives, but they don't realize the magnitude of this lie and what it's linked to. Because you have the Big Bang Theory, you have the evolution, you have now the eugenics programs, the technocrats. Once you start looking into all the major big conspiracies, you will see links to all of them, and you'll understand better.
And I think that's something, I think maybe we'll start wrapping it up here, because for me personally, and I think, because I have talked to Boomeister a couple of times, this is where we come at, and I liked what we talked about in the beginning. Both of you guys investigating conspiracy theories and going down that rabbit hole, and I think this is just generally where a lot of times there's this communication breakdown when we have these discussions, and this goes with kind of almost all humans. We all have our perspective of how we see things are all different. No one human individual brain. It's kind of like a fingerprint. It gets evolved by different. Our imprinting when we're young, what our parents tells us, what schools tells us, and then maybe something dramatic happens to us that we kind of like go and think for ourselves and we question things. But a lot of people don't do this. A lot of people are just fine with the little myths that we hear on every day, and that's why I kind of stood a little bit outside of this conversation, because for me, I don't like to necessarily talk about something that I haven't personally investigating and researching myself, and that's why a lot of times I pose them as questions. I have questions about the flat Earth model, and so I think this is important for anybody listening and for all of us to continue on questioning things, investigating, not taking anybody's word for it, but researching, especially if it piques your interest, to look into different things. And I mentioned it in the beginning. I kind of go from the point of view of someone that I have read, and I like the way he thinks, so I kind of model my own way of thinking in this sense. Is Robert Anton Wilson, and he has these things that I don't believe in anything, but I have my suspicions, and you leave it up to that you even questioning your own beliefs. And I think a lot of times, whether you believe in the globe or the flat Earth, it is important to constantly, because like what we were saying in the beginning, or what I said further on about science, that these are all models and theories and interpretations of data, and we should always be able to revamp our models according to new input of data that we have. And I think this is a good practice going forward for anybody. And if you guys want to say anything to wrap up, of how would you guys want to communicate, I guess? So
my final statement is, I said it at the beginning, it's not a fair fight. The truth versus lies. Lies are just so easy to believe. A lot of people that believe in the spinning ball say, oh, just because you can't explain something with NASA doesn't mean the Earth is flat. Boomeister said that several times. The truth is, I became a flat earther before I knew that NASA was fake. I believed in NASA. And then somebody said to me, how do you believe in NASA? And I thought about it, and the answer was because I never looked. And then I looked, and I quickly became aware of how much of NASA was a fraud. So again, don't believe me. Go out there, take the time to look at the evidence and come up with your own decision. And I promise you, you cannot get through my flat Earth pages and still remain a ball Earth NASA believer. It's impossible.
Yeah, and in the end, just like I said, I'll just repeat it. It's a choice. You know, we all have our different path, and we all know different stuff. So we all have a path of knowledge, a path to learn, and you either choose to learn or you accept the reality that you were told. And you don't have to start with flat Earth videos. You know that there's a guy that I've seen recently called Bill Gaede. He's into rational physics. I don't know if you guys have heard of rational physics, and he's against the accepted theories of physics, and he explains how black holes, and black matter is dogma. You know, they can explain it with mathematics, but they don't tell you that mathematics is a language. It's a descriptive language. So it's not going to tell you the answer. It's going to describe what is the answer. You have to have an observation and an experiment to see if the math is true or not. There's also a recent test that was done. The video is called "A Mountain of Evidence," and if you want to check that out, I think that's a really good test. And that's the difference. You know, you have to test stuff yourself. You know, there's many tests that you can do to try to prove or disprove your belief system.
What was the name of the video where the guy goes up on the mountains and finds the 3 mountains?
It's the mountain, a mountain of evidence.
A mountain of evidence. That is one of the best videos out there. But again, for someone that doesn't believe in flat Earth, it's hard to get them to spend an hour and watch something. They try to skim through it, and then you lose the meaning of it. All right. Well, thanks so much for having us on, and you were great.
Boomeister, do you want to say anything to end it?
One sec.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we had you on. And actually, I don't know, depending on how my time is, hopefully I'll be able to check out some of your YouTube videos, and maybe in like 2 months or whatever, we could have you back on. And so.
Everyone, sorry. Thank you guys so much. This was awesome.
But yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for hosting.